Hello and welcome to the Project 2 solution. This is my take on it anyway. According to the textbook, you're supposed to take 3 grades, calculate the average, and output it. So let's start a new project. Okay, I'm going to select Visual Basic, Windows Desktop, and a Windows Form app. Put it in a specific place. Let's see. You can put yours under CIS212 Projects, whatever. Okay. And I'll call this Project 2. Whoops. Project 2. Okay. And here's my form in design view. The first thing you need to do is, before you put your controls on, is change the name of the file name for the form. And I'm going to call it FRM main, FRM for form. Should pop up, and ask if you want to rename the actual object as well, and everything that references form 1 in the code behind. That's a good idea, always. So select your form. Let's go in and change a couple of things. Form main is the name of the object and the name of the file. Let's see. Windows default location, set it to center screen. And the text, which is what shows up here in the caption, I'll call it average calculator. And I think that's all we need to do for that. All right. Control S to save. Now, obviously, there are many different ways to do this, but the easiest way is just to use 3 text boxes and associated naming labels. So let's go to label. Put that in there. I'm going to set some common properties because I'm going to copy and paste these. They're duplicates, so the names I'll have to go in and fix. But grade 1. Excuse me. Auto size, I usually set that to false so I can, shrink it, expand it, whatever. And then we want to do, where's the text alignment? There it is, text line. I'm going to set it to middle left. In the text I want to display, I'm just going to put grade 1 colon. Okay, so there's that. Now let's grab a text box. Okay, got to change the name of it. Don't leave these default names in here. That's not a good sign for people looking at your work, and it's not good, if you're looking for a job either. I'll call this grade 1. And let's see what we have here. There we go. That looks about right. Maybe a little bit too far away. We can change it later. You don't need to be that big. All right, let's move this up here. Let's copy it and paste it. Now, some of the properties will map over to the new objects, and some won't, but I won't have to go in and reset all, like text align and all that stuff, if you just do a group copy like this. Okay, so there's my label for LBL for label grade 2. And then I don't have to set anything else on this except for the text property. And see it copied over. I'll just change it to grade 2. And then this one, and they're overlapping a little. It doesn't really matter because it doesn't have a border around it. This will be grade 3. LBL grade 3. Now don't forget, there is like I said in Project 1, there is a naming convention document in the student resources section that shows you how to do some of this stuff as far as the names go. All right, that's text grade 1. I need to change this one to text grade 2. and this one will be text grade 3. All right, so there's all of that. Now I need another couple of labels over here, so I'm going to grab this one, copy it for my output. Okay, this one can be label output, and the text should be, what are we calculating? Well, we're calculating the average. Whoops, can't get my big fingers off the keys quick enough. All right, and this one doesn't have any text because we're going to put text in there while it's running during runtime. This should be label, whoops. Now, I've used text boxes here because it needs to be able to take input from the user. Labels cannot do that. You can't type into them. And I don't need that functionality because we're just going to be displaying something here. So there's no need to use a text box, which has, it's just a bigger object, it's heavier, has more properties and methods, and labels a very simple, light object, doesn't take a lot of memory. So use what you need when you need it. Excuse me. All right, border. Let's put just a single border around it. Okay, so save everything. So now that gives us pretty much what we need. Let me push this over just a little bit. Okay. Now we need some buttons. On any kind of little application like this, you're going to need 2 or maybe 3, depending on what you're doing. But obviously, this would be my clear button, maybe. So BTN clear. So that's what I'm calling the name of the object. Now the text displayed on the object is a totally different property down here. I want to use clear, but I'm going to use a Alt key combination to do that. In the text, you put, let's say I want to use an L, Alt L, to, basically it will be as if the button were clicked, but you can use it that way. For people with certain disabilities, you have to think in those terms. So it'll be C ampersand, excuse me. So now there'll be an underline under the L, and they can hit Alt L, and it will give them what they need. And I'm going to copy that, paste it a couple more, whoops, paste it a couple more times. Let's see, I probably need to push this over a little bit. Now there are ways to align this accurately. I think it's tools. You can do equal spacing horizontally, vertically, and that kind of stuff. But then you can also turn on the grid and do it that way. All right, so we got this button. This is our clear button. This is going to be our calculate button. So I'm going to use the ampersand before the A. Now, if you try to use like Control P or Alt F5, something's already being used, it's not going to let you do it. So always pick something that Windows is not using. So this would be calculate, and go up here and change this to button calculate, or calc if you don't want to type very much. And this will be our exit button. You got to be able to terminate the thing without going up there and clicking on the red X. So this would be E ampersand XIT, and that will put the underscore under the X. All right, so let's save it. Now I need to show you something here. Let's go into the code behind. Mainly when we start doing, I think it's chapter 3, if you flip in your book, or your ebook if you will, to page 172 and look at the code under step 10, you'll see 3 commands. Now you can do this forever. You don't have to type them in if you put it in the system in the setup. But option at line 678, option explicit on, option infer off, option strict on. By default, that's not running, okay, which means the things you're doing in the first 2 chapters, you're going to have to do differently from that point forward. So I'll kind of give you a heads up about that. Visual Basic being a legacy language, in order to be brought into the 21st century and be brought into the object-oriented world, they had to make some trade-offs because there's billions and billions of lines of code out there that people still use, and they couldn't change it in such a way as to break the functionality. They just had to do some upgrades and workarounds. So that's what you're seeing here. Essentially, in any language nowadays, you have to take text out of a text box, which the text property holds the text the user might type in or you might put in there, and convert that, if it's possible, to a number before you do math on it, and then convert it back to text and put it back in the text property of the output. In this case, it would be in the average, label average output. We're going to get into that in more detail. Excuse me. For right now, we're just using the val function, which takes a piece of string and tries to convert it to a number in the format function. That's going to change because you'll have to put those statements in there, or I'll show you how to set it up where you don't have to do it. But so there we go. Okay, so clear, calculate, exit. We're going to do exit first. That's the easy one, right? Okay. Me is the instance of the current form, and close is the method. Now VB is very forgiving. If I hit enter, notice what it does. That's a method, so it has to have opening and closing parens in the argument list. If I hit enter, it puts them in there for me. Other languages won't do that for you. You have to actually do it. So in that regard, you got it kind of made. So there's that. Excuse me. Allergies. Let's run it and see if that much is working. So F5 will start the debugger. And there's my form centered in the screen, ready to accept input. So if I put 100 and tab down, 100, tab, 100, nothing else happens because I haven't coded that functionality, but I did code exit. Let's see if that works. There it goes. It did exit. So, all right, so that's out of the way. Clear. Let's see. I'll put some comments in here. Clear all data, obviously. So let's go back and look and see what I need to clear. I need to clear their input and my output. That's all I need to clear. So I have 4 objects I have to clear. The data that they type in is going to be held in this object's text property. The label and the text box have text properties, .text. That by default is of type string, right? So let's go in here and set up the clear. So I need 3 text boxes, grade 1, dot what? Well, there's properties and methods associated with every object in its text. That's what holds the data. Now I need to wipe that data out of there. You can use 2 double quotes. That'll do it. I don't like to use those because it's hard with my eyes the way they are to tell if there's a space in between there or not. If you can do it that way, that's fine, but I use string.empty. And once you find the property, you can just hit your tab and it'll stick it in there for you. And then I'm going to copy this so I won't have to keep doing all this. Just change the name of it. Oop, I didn't mean to get that comment in there. This would be grade 2, grade 3. Whoops. And I don't need that comment. That was dumb. All right. My goodness. Okay. There it is. All right. Now, and then I have that one label. This is my output label, right? So that's LBL. Notice all your labels are coming up. What property holds the string or the data? Well, it's of type string, and it's called the text property. And I'll do string empty again. Okay, so that should get all of those. Now, those are easy. You just have to understand what a text property is. You know, what holds that value. So let's go back. And now let's code the calculate button. That's where the meat of everything is. So a couple of different ways of doing this, obviously, but to do an average, you take, in this case, 3 grades, sum the 3 grades, and then divide by 3, right? And that's your average. Now, the book tells you they want it to 2 decimal places. Well, we're going to use the format function. They gave you a hint in there. It said use the val and format function. So notice what this created. Click event, click event, click event. Now that's called an event handler. There are other events. There's mouse over, mouse up, mouse down. But if you want the default event, which in the case of a button, the click event is the default event, you can get there quicker if you just double click on it. There are other ways, and we'll show you how to do other event handlers. All right. Let's go ahead and we're going to have to hold on to this string that the users have typed in, or that's going to hold our formatted string, and we're going to output it. Now, I could set up text values or numeric values for each one of the numbers that they type in for the 3 grades, but I'm going to do a little shortcut here. So how do you start a variable? Well, you use dim for dimensioning the variable. That's from way back. I'm going to call it average. Since it's one word, it's going to be all lowercase, right? As string. I'm going to, I'm going to initialize that to an empty string. You have to initialize these things to wipe out all the mess in there. Okay, all the garbage that might be there. All right, so let's do a little comment here. Calculate average and format. Now, most of the time you go from a string to a number and then from a number back to a string. I'm doing the same thing, I'm just doing it all in 1 or 2 little lines. You can do it different ways, but average. Average. Might help if I could type and spell. All right, so there it is. How do I do this? Well, I'm going to stick it in my average variable. Okay, so let's start out with the value function that's going to grab what? The first grade, which is located where? Text grade 1 dot text, right? Then I'm going to add that to this, add all these together. Essentially what's happening is it's taking the strings out of here and it's converting them to a number, adding them together. It's going to do the math, and then the format function is going to convert it back to a string. So I'm still doing string to number to string. I'm just doing it all in one line. So let's see. I got to add these 3 together. I might as well just go ahead and do this. This would be text grade 2 dot text. Whoops, sorry. And then val, whoops, text 3 dot text. All right. Now that adds them together. What we want to do now is divide by 3. What's going on here? Oh, my num locks off. I'm using 3.0 because when you start getting into type evaluations, you should be using apples and apples or oranges and oranges, like doubles and longs and all that kind of stuff. 3.0 is a double or a float. All right, so there's that. And then this, I need a format. Let's see, I got val divided by 3. All right, now format. What does format do? It takes a number and converts it into a string using a certain format that you have to tell it. It can be currency, certain number of decimal places, different ways of doing it. So I'm going to come in here, assuming I got the right number of parens, which I probably don't. I don't think I need that one there. I think I needed it over here. You have to have the same number of opening and closing parens. You can count them. All right, now notice what happened here. IntelliSense popped up the syntax statement for a format function. All right. Now there are all kind of different string expressions here, but the one I want to use, I want 2 decimal places. So I can do pound is just a placeholder. So pound, comma. I don't think I'm going to need all those, but I'm going to put it in there anyway. Where's my pound at? What? There it is. Pound, 0, and then my 2 decimal places. Okay. I probably won't have, I mean, obviously it won't be more than 100, but I mean, it could be, I suppose, but extra credit and so forth. So there's that, and it looks like I didn't get any squiggly lines. So essentially, let me tell you what's happening here. I'm grabbing the text out of the text property. That's what that does right there. Out of all 3 of those text boxes, grade 1, grade 2, and grade 3. Then I'm converting each to a number using the val function, and then I'm adding all of those together first. Remember, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, well, you got to put them in parens if you want that to happen first. Then I'm dividing by 3.0 because there's 3 grades, and then I'm taking all that, which is now a string, right, or now a number, and I'm converting it back to a string using the format function, and I'm giving it some parameters here for 2 decimal places, which is what the book requires. So what have we got here? I think we got exit. No, we got it all, looks like, except for one thing. I got to take that string and stick it in where? Right there. The name of that object is label average output. So I need one more assignment statement. And that should do it right there. Oh, text, excuse me. No, shouldn't. Oh, forgot the text property. There it is. Okay, got rid of my red squiggly lines. Okay, so save all this, and let's run this puppy and see if it works. Let's see, 100, 100. 3 100s divided by 3 is, whoops, 100, isn't it? So I don't know if it's right. Calculate. There it is. 2 decimal places. Clear and exit. Okay, that's project 2. If you have any questions about that, let me know. Otherwise, see you on the next video.